Hi, welcome to my full Monty show part 2. Part 2 is about the disassembly of the bolt and the trigger mechanism. Now today's guest is the DERYA RIA TM22-A-18. And now if that sounds familiar, it should, because that's the same model number on this rifle, which I presume it's incorrect. This should be TM22-S-18. S stands for standard. A, I'm not sure what it stands for, but I think it meant alloy. In any case, if you happen to have a short handguard alloy receiver, then that'll also apply. So today, I'm not just going to, I usually just disassemble and not reassemble, but because the trigger mechanism is quite complicated, I will reassemble the trigger mechanism. So stick around and I will be back. I am back. Now, you have to, the reason why I disassembled it is because it's easy to work with, but you have to remove the stock anyway, so I thought I might as well just remove the barrel while I'm at it. Once you get to this point, your short handguard and your long handguard is identical except for the selector. Okay, the selector is reversed. Other than that, it's identical. Okay, now the first thing I do is remove the top cover. Now be careful, the spring may jump out. Okay. And remove the spring. Recoil the spring and the rod and the bushing. Okay, and the bolt comes straight up. So what I'm going to do is start with removing the firing pin, and that's the firing pin, and I'm going to use a 1/16 punch to drive that pin out. Okay. Try to protect your bolt so you don't end up scratching it. And take that, and it doesn't matter whether you punch it left or right or left, it makes no difference. Just gently tap it across like that. This is what the firing pin looks like. Oh, actually firing pin looks like. So I'll just leave it here, and now I'm going to remove this. And put your finger at the back of the firing pin, because when you remove the punch, it may jump out. So the firing pin looks like this, and this is the firing pin spring. Okay, so when it's in the bolt, it looks like that. Okay. And if you see this notch where the firing pin goes to, it face down. Alright. The next thing we do is remove the extractor pin. And there's 2 extractor on this bolt, and they're very easy, and you just punch it from the bottom up. Okay, so turn it upside down. Actually, you might not even have to punch it. I think it just spring tension might just fall out. Let's see if that is true. Okay, so you like that. Hold it, push it down. Yes, it just fell out. It's about 1/2 inch long. Okay, and one side is bulge, so that means that's the top side. I'm just going to do one because you don't need me to show you to do both sides. Okay, now you turn up right side up, and here comes the extractor. Okay, note on the extractor, the top side, there's a cut. Okay. Now there is an extractor spring, and it's right here, about an inch from the front. I'm going to see if I can pull that out and show you what it looks like. Yes it is. Okay, it's about a 1/4 inch long. Okay, so that's basically it. And when you put it back, make sure the notch, you know what, I might as well show you how to put it back because it might be complicated. Okay, let me put the firing pin back. Not so much the extractor. The extractor is pretty straightforward, but the firing pin can be a little tricky. So the first thing you do is slide it in like this, part way. Now put the spring in, and then make sure the firing pin is inside it, and then it comes right through. Okay. Now, if those of you are wondering if you could dry fire this rifle, yes you can. And the reason why is I'll show you once I have this all assembled. Make sure that this is facing down, this notch. Push it straight in. Make sure that your firing pin is vertical. If it's not, use something that could straighten it out. Yeah, you need to straighten that out before you could actually put this pin back in. Okay, so put the pin back in. Now it doesn't matter which way you do it. Now you're going to look through the hole, make sure, press it all the way in with your fingers, like that. Look through this hole and make sure it's vertical. If it's not, try to straighten it out, like whatever, yeah, that's it. Now hold it like this and then tap it in. Now once you got part way in, you can release the firing pin, checking to make sure from the hole it's vertical. Now press it again and hammer the roll pin all the way in. Okay, now before you finish, make sure it's a little springy, and I'll tell you why. If I were to take a punch and press the back of the firing pin as far as it'll go, and you can see it will not pass the face of the bolt, which means it will not hit the face, the back end of the chamber. So that's why it's safe to dry fire this rifle, okay? Because the pin stops it from going any further. As you can see, it will not pass the front surface of the bolt. All right, so I'm done with the bolt. Next thing is, actually what I should do is do the mag catch, disassemble that, and that's pretty simple. There's a slot there, use a slot screwdriver and unscrew it. Make sure your finger is on the other side, and I already loosened it up, so I might as well just do it. Okay. This is the catch, and that's the spring. It goes in like this. When you are putting them aside, It's always a good idea to reassemble them so you don't lose the pieces. Okay, so when they're in the receiver, they look like this. All right, next thing I'm going to do is remove the ejector. This is the ejector. It's spring-loaded. Okay. Now, this pin can only come out one way, and that you have to punch from the left to the right. Okay. That's the only way you could remove this pin, and that's the ejector pin, which is situated near the exit port. Okay. And pretty simple to do that. Actually, what I'm going to do is protect the receiver, and I'm going to try to, I already punched it out earlier, so I'm going to try to just basically punch it out now using the same punch. And here it is. Now you don't have to punch it all the way out, and you see those I guess little slits that's at the end of the punch of this pin. That tells you only can come to the right and not punch from the right to left. You only punch from left to right. Okay, so now hold on to the ejector and pull out the punch. It's spring-loaded. This is what the ejector looks like, and you see that hole, and there's a slit at the bottom of the hole. That's the ejector. Now there is a spring with a plunger. There it is. Spring and a plunger. Okay, I'm going to leave that ejector pin in there, and this is what it looks like. Alright, next thing you do is remove the trigger. Actually, it's the selector. I'm going to remove the selector, and to remove that you have to, there's a C-clamp on the right side. All you have to do is push it out, push it down. Okay, and you can use a variety of tools, but I already did it once already, and so I'm just gonna simple as this, and this is the C-clamp. Once you remove the C-clamp, this is the selector. Push from the right to the left. Actually, this selector is also holding on to the hammer. Okay, so what you should do is release the tension first. Okay, so I'm going to release the tension of the hammer. Okay, so now the hammer is forward. This selector pin double as a hammer pin. So let me push that out. I'm just going to use a regular punch, and be careful when you push the selector out. There's a ball bearing that's going to fall out. Okay, so be careful. So you take that and you just push it in from right to left. Oh, you see the ball bearing just came out already. Now leave the punch in there. I want to show you it's a 3mm ball bearing. Okay, try not to lose that. It's not easy to buy ball bearings. Now here is the selector partially out. Okay, now continue pushing the punch all the way across till the selector falls out, and leave the punch inside like that. Here is the selector. This is plastic, the pin is steel, and this looks like maybe alloy. And these grooves is what, here, if I could point it out, these grooves is what gives that clicking sound between fire and safe. Okay, now you see this hammer? Careful, when you pull the hammer out, it's spring loaded. Pull it, hold it while you pull the punch out. And pull out the spring while you're at it. So it looks like this. Okay. Here's the spring. Obviously, this part will be towards the back because it's pushing the hammer forward, right? It's pushing the hammer forward. So obviously, this part has to be to the back. This is the hook where it hooks onto the hammer, right here. Okay. So that's done. This is what it looks like. Okay, the next step, which I already showed you how to remove this screw. This screw not only double as a sling plate, it holds the sling plate in place, but also it holds a spring and a plunger in there for the Sear. So this is a Sear screw, I guess if you can call it that. So obviously I already have unscrewed it, so let's unscrew it. This is what it looks like, and you have to shake. Okay, this is the Sear plunger and the spring. There's two ends. It's the one end of the spring that goes into the plunger like this. The other end doesn't go in. So you know that's the wrong end. This is the correct end. All right? Okay, now there's no tension on the Sear. Okay. Now, the next thing you remove is the trigger. Now I found it wasn't that easy to remove the trigger pin, but the trigger pin is located right next to the hammer pin, which is right here. Okay. And I found it was best to punch from the right side to the left side. And the way I do it is making sure I hold it steady, using the same punch, and tap it out. Again, like the ejector pin, you don't have to completely remove it. You can just leave it at that position. Now, again, it's spring loaded. Take note that the upper part of the spring is leaning on the bottom of the receiver, like right here. All right? Pay attention to that. And where is the other end of that spring? I guess I'll find out once I remove this. So now I'm going to remove the punch and expect the hammer here it is. Not the hammer, the trigger. So if it was in the receiver, the spring would go like this, It will hook to the back of the trigger. And this is the connector. It would hook onto this pin, and your trigger pin would just go straight across like this. It goes through the spring, and that's what it looks like. Okay? I'll do it one more time before when I reassemble. I know it's a little complicated, so try to leave that pin, trigger pin, and the ejector pin in place. Okay. Now you're wondering about, what about this roll pin? Well, this roll pin, oh, here it is. Something fell out. Oh yes. What fell out is, this is the connector, plunger, and spring. Okay. And they go in this hole right here. Okay. I will show to you later. This hole towards the back. Now, if you don't punch out this pin, this roll pin, because all it does is basically stopping the trigger from going forward. So you don't need to remove that. Now, nor do you need to remove this roll pin. But this roll pin you need to remove, because that holds on to the Sear. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Oh, I might as well show you where the ball bearings came from. There is, this is a spring, and the ball bearing sits, oh, don't lose it. The ball bearing sits on top like that, and then you push the selector down on it. Now, can you remove that spring, the ball bearing springs? I tried, and yes, it does come out. That's what it looks like. Okay, so I'm just going to put her back in. I don't want to lose it. Okay, so I put her back in. Okay, so there's another roll pin next to it. You don't touch that. Another one about 3/4 of an inch further down at an angle. That's the one, is the Sear pin. That one you do punch out. And here I will I better put the spring down here. Okay, I'm almost there. Nope, not all the way yet. Oh, there it is. Okay, this is what the inside looks like. Here, I'm going to use a flashlight to show you where. Actually, I'm going to use a flashlight later. Okay, this is what the Sear looks like. Okay. This is where the roll pin goes in. And this hook faces the front. Okay, it's pretty obvious. This is the hook, face the front, and it hooks on to the hammer. Okay, you see the hammer? It hooks up to the hammer like this. Okay, so basically that's it. I'll go get a flashlight and I'll show you what the inside looks like so you can have a, oh, here it is. Here's a flashlight. Okay. You see there's quite a few holes in there. The one hole in the back, that is the connector, plunger and spring. That's for the plunger and spring. The second hole is for the screw for the grip, and the third hole from the back is for the hammer spring. All right. So basically, this is it as far as the disassembly goes. Now I'm going to show you how to reassemble them, because it's quite complicated, and if you make a mistake, it could be quite costly. So I'll be back. I'm ready to reassemble the trigger group, and the first thing goes in is the last thing that came out, which is the Sear. Okay. Now remember, the hook faces forward, and if you remember, I did not completely remove the pin, so I'm going to try to drive the pin from the left side to the right side. But before I could do that, I want to make sure it's lined up properly, so I'm going to use the same punch. I'm going to put it in, and I'm going to try to put the Sear in that hole. There it is. Okay. And you can tell it's in because, and now I'm going to try to hold the punch straight so I could guide this pin straight in. Okay, make sure it's straight. And it is. Yep. Okay. It's in. Next thing that goes in is the connector, plunger, and spring. This is the plunger. This is the spring. Okay. There's a hole in the plunger, and the spring goes into the hole. Now, this is how it rests. Okay, so this is where the spring goes. The spring actually, when it's resting, the Sear, the connector is resting on the plunger. This is what it would look like. Okay, so the hole that's the most to the back, this is where this goes in. So make sure you just slide it in. Yes, it's in. Make sure it's in. Yes, it's in. Next thing you do is put the connector onto the trigger, and there's a pin, a chrome pin at the bottom, at the middle of the trigger, and this goes like that. Okay, like this. And the spring goes in like this. If you imagine like that. Okay, but let me put this in first, and this part goes under the Sear. Okay, like that. Make sure you don't drop the plunger and the spring. So just slide it in like this. Yeah, it's a little tricky, so you have to do this a few times. Okay, it can be frustrating, but put the trigger in and then dropped the connector in, and the connector should be just below the hook. Okay, now make sure you pull up on the trigger, and you can see the hole that it goes into. Okay, so if you can just, it's not going to be easy, but you can see the hole, and you can see just move the trigger around till, and then you push it in like that, and then just move the trigger around till the punch falls in place. You can kind of guess where the hole should be. There it is. Okay, now once I got this punch, I can see it partway there. Stop right here. Make sure the connector didn't fall out of place, and it is below the hook. Now that I got the punch on the right side, I can go ahead and hammer this pin on the left side in a bit just to hold the trigger in place, but not to go right through, okay? Just to basically, oh, you see it's gone too far. Now I gotta push that back out and not impede where the spring sits. So I gotta push that back in far enough. Yep, that's it. So now the trigger is in place, held in by this pin on the left. All right, now let's see if I could use a thin, like a nail or something like that, to put this in. I'm going to put this through here. I'm going to put the spring in. This is not easy. I've been working on it for quite some time. Okay, now I got, now I'll pull it back out, push the spring in. Okay, oh, jumped out. Let's do that again. Pull the pin out, put the nail, pull the nail out, put the spring in place. Jump down. Okay, try that again. Maybe I should find a way to push that down far enough that this nail could hold it in. It's not holding it. Do that again. Okay, I'm not able to push that spring low enough for even a thin nail. See, that's not working. If you got a better solution, please leave the comment of how to do this. Okay, let me see. Maybe I should hold it with the needle nose plier. Push it down. Yes, that's good. Oh, jumped out. Try that again. be careful when you're holding it with the needle nose plier. You don't squeeze too tight, or you're gonna bend the spring out of shape. Oh, I got it in. Okay, I got the nail in. Now I gotta make sure it lines up with this pin. So I gotta make sure it goes in. Hold the nail on the right side and gently tap on the left side, and make sure you wiggle Oh, that's gone. Oh, finally. I can remove the nail and tap this pin in. Gee, that took a couple of hours. And now I can drive this in. Okay, now that's flush. Yep, make sure that works. Okay, the next thing goes in is the hammer. And you put the spring in like this. This is the front. Okay, spring goes in. Slide the spring and the hammer into the largest hole. And make sure you have the sharp punch. You're using that only as a guide and just to hold the hammer in place till you could slide the selector from the left side. Okay, and don't forget the selector goes in and it replaces the sharp punch. And just do it slowly and just guide it in, and with the right side holding the punch, you could just wiggle it till the hammer is held in by the selector. You can keep moving it in like this, just gently. Okay, once you get to this position, now once you get the selector in part way, like this, and you haven't put the ball bearings in, but the ball bearing spring is already in place, make sure you cock the hammer, and pull the Sears forward so its hammer is down. Okay, so now you can put the ball bearing on top of the spring like this, and then push the selector down and make sure it's moving freely. Okay, it's not. Now you can test it. Make sure it's in safe. All the way down. Pull the trigger. It's not firing. That's correct. And now it's red. And you pull the trigger. It fires. Okay. So now pull the Sear forward. Lock in the hammer down. Now you can go ahead and put the C-clamp or C-clip in. And that's pretty straightforward. Just basically slide it in like that, and make sure you don't scratch the receiver. So you're in there. Okay, and the next thing that goes in is the Sear plunger and spring. There's two ends to it. Make sure you put the plunger into the spring first, like this. Hold it like that. Place it in the back of the hole. Oops, came off. Make sure it's together and stays together when it goes in. And then you can put the swivel screw on top. Yep. You can tighten it by hand. Okay, so now that's all in place. You can test it again. It is in fire. It does. Comes back, locks in. It's in safe, and it doesn't fire. So it all works. So the next thing that goes back in is the ejector. And the ejector spring and the plunger. So that goes in the hole in the front, like that. It's in. This goes like this, obviously, and this is very easy. So use a mallet. I don't know where the hole is, so I just gotta guess where the hole is. Let's see. Okay, it's not in yet. Okay, there's another way to do this, and that is to put this punch in and wiggle the ejector around. Yep, and now it's in place. Now I can use the hammer and I can punch it in, and at the same time the punch comes out, it gets pushed, and make sure it works. Now I can just give it a final tap. And what I'm going to do is put this okay, so that's in. Now the last thing to go in is the mag catch. Okay, this goes on the left side, and it's this part as the catch that goes in, and it's flush like this here, and on this side you just basically screw that in. So, thank you very much for joining me for the full Monty Part 2, where I disassembled the bolt and the disassembly and the reassembly of the trigger group. Thank you very much.